Hello, my name is Lauren Stinton. This is the book I'm going to be reading out of tonight, The House of Elah. I'm going to read the first chapter. Alishar Vareen never had difficulty selling slaves until he tried to sell the Fomorian. The man was well-built and muscled, with hands used to labor. Most of the merchants in this city owned mines. The land was not for farming, it was filled with granite. They would need men like this, ones who are used to hard work and lifting, but no one would touch him because of the scar on his chest. It was shaped like a half-moon, and whoever had marked him like this had done it with a steady hand and a sharp blade. The scar was precise. Alishar had, of course, noticed the mark right away, but never would he have considered that the silly, superstitious minds of Blue Mountain would be afraid of it and avoid the slave as they would a diseased dog. Half a dozen men had suggested Alishar drown him. Another half-dozen suggested he burn him as an offering to the gods. Alishar had no intention of doing either of those things. He had purchased the man to sell him at a profit, and it would be ridiculous to kill him because of people's inane fear. If he couldn't sell him in Blue Mountain, he would take him north into Paxa and sell him for their blood games. Let him die there, after Alishar had collected the profit he intended. Within 6 days' time, Alishar unexpectedly emptied all 4 of his wagons of wares. He had anticipated spending 2 weeks in Blue Mountain and then continuing his journey north with a brief stop at Footbridge, some 3 days' distance around the mountain. But what Blue Mountain lacked in civilization and wisdom, it possessed in coin. The city had grown since Alishar's last visit 3 years before, and his profits were double what he had expected. His purses were filled to overflowing. He could return to his family in the desert much sooner than anticipated, with ease and plenty of pride, bearing many gifts for his wives and children. The one item he could not sell at a profit, no matter how hard he tried, was the scarred Fomorian. Alishar could not travel north for the sake of selling one man. However, by the time his pre-planned 2 weeks were over, only one offer had come in for the Fomorian, a rather sordid offer. As he made up his mind to accept it and sent his assistant running for the gamer, Alishar stared heavily at the Fomorian, considering the possibilities one last time. The man had to go. This was the only way, but Alishar was sorry to assign any man an end such as this one. The Fomorian sat in the back of the wagon, his ankles and wrists manacled with bands and chains of black iron. He had not caused him any trouble. In all likelihood, he had been a farmer's son, an innocent man, until war had fallen upon his town and destroyed it, killing and enslaving those around him. He was built like a fighter, but he did not look like a fighter as he sat there in silence, head bowed, his chained hands in his lap. Alishar approached him. "Which gods do you serve?" he quietly asked him. The head rose quickly, as if the man were surprised to be addressed. "I serve Obelel," the Fomorian answered, eventually adding, "My lord." It was the first set of words he had said in Alishar's hearing. Alishar had not asked him his name or how he had acquired the half-moon scar on his chest. "It is a sign of the gods," the other vendors had whispered. "You should kill him now, before he brings a curse on your family." "A Fomorian who serves the god of the sun?" Alishar asked. He looked at the slave with suspicion in his eyes. "Don't your people prefer the gods of the woods, of rock and stone?" "I serve Obelel," the Fomorian answered simply. The simplicity did not make sense to Alishar, and he preferred things to make sense, to line up and form something that could be added and subtracted and multiplied logically. He frowned at the man and asked snidely, "Do you not see where you are? Do you not know the offer I have received for you? Don't put your trust in the god of the sun, who can be distilled by shadow. Put your trust in one who responds to a man's service. You're going to need a god's help where you're going." Something flickered through the man's dark eyes. A line of uncertainty appeared between his brows, but then he released a short sigh and said, "Obelel." A simple farmer, that was the issue here. Alishar shook his head, putting aside his slight sting of conscience. The man was not his responsibility. His life did not matter. The merchant who had made an offer for the Fomorian served one of the many gods of death. Alishar did not know which one, but it likely was not one of the more pleasant ones. The man ran a public gaming enterprise involving high bets, flowing wine, and wild beasts in an arena. In Alishar's opinion, the local games proved what he knew about this city. Dirty, low class, possessing a general lack of sanity. Who would ever want to watch such a frightening sport? His decision to sell the slave to House of Elah brought him a level of misgiving, but he wanted to go home. As he saw the merchant approaching, weaving his way through the crowded market, Alishar looked at the Fomorian one last time, and his condescension ebbed. He was giving this man up for death. The men of this town would make bets on the number of wounds he received, the time of his death, and which animal struck the killing blow. "May your God protect you," he muttered. The slave had lowered his head again. Ever since his purchase, he had showed uncommon submission for a man who had been free only 2 months ago. Alishar did not expect a reply from him, but he received one. "I hope you will, my lord," the Fomorian answered softly. The sale was made, and Alishar walked away from it with only half of his original investment. But never mind that. It had been a good lesson for him. The next time he came to trade in Blue Mountain, he would plan for their superstitions. He could make a fortune here with only a little bit of study. The new fighter caused something of a stir when the master's private guard walked him through the court and the southern garden to deposit him underground with the others. The man was handsome. There was no denying that. The kitchen girls twittered until Majda developed a headache, a fierce one, right behind her left eye. "Enough!" she shouted, and the girls dropped into trembling silence. She did not yell at them often, so when she did, they contemplated her orders with a severe sort of seriousness. She had been the housekeeper of House of Elah, merchant and gamer, for 17 years. Though not a free woman, she had authority here, and the master listened to her. Every so often it was important to remind the girls of such things. "Did you not see the mark on him? It is the sign of death, made by a sacred priest. The fighter will meet his time here this very night. Do not giggle over a man who bears such a mark. You could find yourself dying alongside him." For one blessed moment, the kitchen was quiet. Majda could hear the kettle hissing over the fire. "My lady," one of the girls whispered. Her name was Elena, and she was the worst offender of them all. It did not matter the age or the lack of talent. If he had a pleasing face, she immediately and thoroughly dropped on her head in fluttery passion. Majda scowled at her, but the child remained undeterred. "Tonight, my lady? He will send him into the arena tonight?" "Aye, without any preparation or training?" Her bottom lip trembled, and she observed in a whiny voice, "Paying customers will not like that." The attempt at manipulation was so obvious that Majda considered slapping her. "The master did not buy him to prepare him. He bought him to appease the priest whose work remains unfinished. The new fighter shall be the first man through the gates." That is chapter 1 of the House of Elah. You can find it on Kindle and Amazon, and I hope you liked it.